DOGE it has so much fanfare with Elon and Vivek talking about it. If we're going to have the opportunity to deliver on real sizable spending cuts, it's going to be through reconciliation.
Okay. Let me, so I'm all about the DOGE. Right? We talk about it all the time, and I'm very excited. I've decided to be excited for the next 40 days, but also prepared, because I say decided because I'm prepared to be disappointed, as we always are, Congressman, by D.C. So I'm prepared, but why be negative Nancy for the next 40 days?
That's a wise assessment.
So now let me ask you. Let me throw a wet blanket on this, on my excitement. This DOGE stuff will never happen, Congressman, because Elon and Vivek have no authority. They're just it's like a Blue Ribbon committee. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So why I have been engaging, spoke with both of them after they came to the Hill and trying to continue dialogue through channels, is because I am greatly concerned that what they're going to do won't happen if they don't understand reconciliation is the only game in town. With the mandate, the enthusiasm, and how important the first 100 days is, again, reconciliation is that nice way of saying it only takes 50 votes, not 60. We have 53 United States senators. It only takes 50 votes in reconciliation. Everyone's going to put pressure on to do the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act extension, and we do need to make sure that the 2017 tax levels remain in place for families. But it's not going far enough just to cut taxes when we've lost 25% of the dollar value in the average family member's pocket since January of 2020. We've got to do more than just cut taxes. We've got to stop the devaluation of the currency for the dollars that they are able to retain, because we're getting smart and letting them keep more of their hard-earned monies. And that's why we're going to get serious about making sure Elon and Vivek's the enthusiasm they've built, if it is going to have a chance to be executed, the next 30 to 60 days, start February timeframe, reconciliation. Some of us are saying to them over and over, and to those that would work under them, you've got to make sure you're prepared and get it done in reconciliation. Our great concern is it won't happen.
Okay, I guess I don't understand the importance of what you're putting on reconciliation. To me, that just sounds like, oh, this is good. We don't need 60 votes in the Senate. You only need 50. That's good, right? So, but I think I'm missing something about the importance.
Republicans can execute on a mandate, right? But what the leverage is, Mike, is that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, there's going to be tremendous pressure to get that done. And so if you pair it, again, what reconciliation is, it is a pairing of revenue to outlays. And so Tax Cuts and Jobs Act comes with CBO scoring it with a certain amount, and you have the opportunity to be able to offset that score, right, that says a loss of revenue, which I don't fully buy in. There's something called dynamic scoring versus static scoring. Dynamic scoring shows you that when you help people keep more of their money, there will be an element that will increase revenue. We saw that in 2017 when we were bringing in $3.5 trillion in taxes. And then right after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, we start bringing in, on average, $4 to $4.4 trillion. That's still where we're at. We increased our revenue after 200 years of governance. We were bringing in $3.5 trillion. Post-Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, after it's implemented, people saying, oh, you're going to be out so much revenue. We increased our revenue stream by $1 trillion. Now, a lot of that goes to play through the corporate tax rate change that went from 36% to 21%, which a lot of people will point to. That was permanent. Some of the things that weren't permanent, like the child tax credit, R&D, business, standard deduction, being increased, those are the things that we're going to have to address in this extension package. And CBO scoring that those with a cost. Spending cuts is the way you can go back, tell them, and show to the CBO, we've got a pathway to, by your math, which we don't agree with, but by your math, here's the way we can pay for it.
Are you, Congressman, thinking big enough?
I'm always open to someone helping me think bigger. So we're trying to press on them. So the Budget Committee's got a plan, thanks to Jody Arrington, the chairman, which is reverse the curse, which is a pathway to balance within 10 years. And I think it's a sad statement that we're having to think that way anymore, that we can't get to balance immediately. So as we're encouraging them, and I think, maybe there's some excitement around the pathway that the Budget Committee's created, this reverse the curse, which comes from James Madison's statement that a public debt is a public curse. That, no, I absolutely agree. Maybe 10 years to solvency isn't enough. I used to work for a U.S. Senator 20 years ago when I first got into politics. For 6 years, I worked for Tom Coburn, who was known as the deficit hawk. When you hear people talk about shrimp on treadmills and bridge to nowhere, that was Tom Coburn. And I spent 6 years with him. Yeah. He's got a plan that I was a part of the staff. I left the staff before they fully did this plan, but it was thousands of hours of Senate time put together to put forth the Back in Black plan. I've also handed that to their team, saying, to your point, reverse the curse is a great starting point, but Tom Coburn was showing us another $1 trillion, not a whole lot of duplication, $1 trillion, not a whole lot of duplication with the plan that they're going to start with, hopefully. And my hope is they do start with the reverse the curse plan, and then they start supplementing with things like what Tom Coburn was talking about, as early as 2011. They could add $1 trillion, back then $1 trillion a year savings. That number only increases now compared to what the numbers were in 2011.
I have two concerns. One concern is, talking with Josh Brecheen from Oklahoma. One concern is, Elon. So someone asked Vivek, who's a bigger cutter, you or Elon? And Vivek said, well, I said we should cut 75% of government. And Elon said, no, at least 75% of government. So they come in with their plans cutting 75% of government. It's not kidding around, Josh. And then it goes to Congress. And not you, but the other congressmen, not from good, proper red states, say, oh, that's great. But I have this company is in my district, and this project's actually really important. And it turns out that in the 2nd Congressional District of Oklahoma, there's that's where they make fluoride to put in our water that RFK wants to ban. So they come to you and say, Josh, I mean, come on, listen, we can't cut the fluoride. And then before you know it, we've cut 1% of our government, and we didn't do squat. That's my worry.
Yeah, look, I have every bit of cynicism that you have from your standpoint in the media. I've had these same positions for years in government. I rank, if you look at my voting records, one of the most conservative people here in the Congress. And I came to solve the problem. And I know that spending cuts have to happen. I campaigned on that. I was in a 14-way primary 2 years ago. I was the last to get in the race. And if you go talk to anybody that I was campaigning, I wasn't promising more government. I was telling them it's time to start eating vegetables, no more free candy, or we will not have a country left. And I thank Tom Coburn for paving the way in Oklahoma, because he started educating the constituency that I represent many years ago about the problems in Washington, D.C., and how many people get elected over promising more. And that's why we're in the $36 trillion realm of gross national debt. It's because the learned politicians learn to promise things to get here instead of saying to the people that they hope to represent, my state, your state, this constituency, this congressional district will never be healthy if America's not healthy. And I can't be promising more to bring home the bacon if the cow has got 20 calves nursing off of her right now, and the cow's about to lie down.
Yeah. Like, maybe politicians get elected by promising cuts, but no politician gets reelected by actually having made the cuts. So this is like a huge, massive test here. All right, what do you make of this complaint? Listen, this DOGE stuff that they're all talking about, and that your former boss is talking about, that's just like, that's a little bit, you got entitlements. That's the real thing, and no one's touching that. So we're only talking about a small percentage of the budget anyway, so what's the point? Who cares? What do you say to that?
Well, I say that you're wrong, whoever's saying that, because many of us are talking about things that they don't include Social Security and Medicare, because President Trump, the way he campaigned, Social Security specifically set that aside. Now, there's some site neutral payments for the service provider on Medicare that we could do that's not going to have an impact on the beneficiaries. There's a lot of waste within the way that we're spending dollars in the service provider community. So I would say on the Medicare front, we'll have to see how the president leads on that. But there's plenty of quote entitlement programming, or let me rephrase that, mandatory spending dollars that often gets grouped into the term entitlement, like Medicaid, food stamps. There's lots of things that we can be doing on the Medicaid front. And I worked on some of that as a state senator when I started a stint in state politics. We've got a number of people that are able-bodied. These are people that are not blind, aged, disabled, pregnant, or nursing mothers, which is the whole point that Medicaid was the whole guise, was those characteristics I just named. And it's been morphed since Obama to include income thresholds and able-bodied individuals. And in some households, you've got two people that are able-bodied receiving Medicaid benefits, and there's no problem. And so the question we have to start asking ourselves, when Oklahoma, more than half of all births in our state are paid for on Medicaid dime, how have we not already moved into an element of socialism in this country? Mm. And is that not the antithesis of what we believe in if everyone who's espousing free market principles? And so we've got to have real hard conversations. To your point, these are not going to be easy conversations. But when you look at stats, and it shows that, like 40% of our population in this country receives some form of $10,000 to $15,000 back from their federal government every year. We've got to have a retraining of what JFK said, that it's time to start asking the question, not what can my country do for me.
Just read this the other day that David Cutler, who was one of Obama's senior healthcare people, in his book, he said that a third of all Medicare spending is wasteful spending. A third of it. So if you guys identify that and you cut it, real quick, if you guys cut that, all the lefties are going to be like, you're cutting Medicare, even though you're just cutting fraud and wasting it. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's plenty of fraud, again, in the service provider community. The mental health, I've said this, I get people mad at me when I say this, but in the mental health servicing provision, that takes a lot of the healthcare dollars now compared to what it did 20, 30 years ago. There are areas where people know that they can get a heightened reimbursement rate on individual billing, and they'll do group sessions with people and bill it as individuals. I mean, there are people that are gaming this system. That greed has a way of always getting more money.